All right, let's get started. Um, welcome everyone who just joined. We're so happy to have all of you here today. My name is Nick. My pronouns are he, him.
And my name is Jill. My pronouns are she, her. And today, Nick and I are going to be guiding you through our session.
So, before we begin, I'd like to just say a few important words. As Treaty people, we are grateful to be able to live, work, and play on this land. Western's campus is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Chinook nations. These lands are connected to the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. We respect the long-standing relationships Indigenous nations have to this land. They are the original caretakers, and at Western, we acknowledge historical and ongoing injustices First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people endure in Canada, and we accept responsibility as a public institution to positively contribute to truth and reconciliation. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So, before we get going, let's get through a few housekeeping items. So, first and foremost, this session is being recorded, so it will be available on our website in a few days. You'll be able to find it on the same page you went through for registration. That's welcome.uwo.ca/presentations. Next, live closed captioning is enabled. So if you'd like to turn it on, you'll find it on the live transcript button on the bottom bar, and then you can choose show subtitle or view full transcript. And just remember, this is live closed captioning, so we can't guarantee the accuracy, but it should be pretty close. Next, your video and audio are going to remain off today, but that doesn't mean that we won't be interacting together.
Yeah, so throughout the presentation, there are going to be polls that we hope you participate in, and we also want to answer any and all of your questions. So at the bottom of your screen, you can find the Q&A box, and that's how you're going to be interacting with us via questions today. You can type questions now throughout the presentation near the end. So we have a bunch of people from Western here to help answer your questions. We also have one of our student ambassadors, Rachel, with us today. So if you have any questions for a current Western student, we've got you covered. Just one tip about questions, be as specific as possible to get the best answer. So, for example, if you have a question about your admission conditions or prerequisite courses, let us know what province, territory, country you are studying in so we can give you the best information. If you have a question specifically for Rachel, make sure you address it to Rachel and we will be able to get all those questions answered. So we are going to get started with a poll here.
Yeah, so on this poll, we would love to know where you're from, where you're watching from today. Are you joining us from right here in London? Are you somewhere else in Ontario? Maybe somewhere else in Canada? Maybe you're joining us from a different country. It's always great to know where everyone's from during these webinars. And then while you guys put those answers in, Nick and I will introduce ourselves again. So once again, my name is Jill. I live here in London, and I graduated from Western 2 years ago with a degree in sociology.
And my name is Nick. I also live here in London. I graduated Western more than 2 years ago. That's all we'll say, with a bachelor's degree in history, a major and a master's, sorry, in American studies, and I got my Bachelor of Education all from Western. So I am very familiar with what it means to be a Mustang. All right. So it is looking like the majority of people who have signed up today are joining us from outside of London, Ontario, rest of Canada, a few outside of Canada, which is pretty cool. Wherever you are joining us from, we are very happy that you are here today. You're thinking about your future, what you want maybe your next year or 2 years to look like. And we're really just here to kind of support you along on this exciting journey and make you very comfortable and excited about joining the Western family. Before we get started, though, we do want to highlight three websites that we are going to talk about over and over again in this presentation. So just get familiar with these websites. The first being OUAC or OUAC, or the Ontario University's Application Center. This is the website that you use to apply to Western and any other universities, and this is where you're going to accept your offer. The next that we want to highlight is the Student Center. You're going to use this throughout your entire time here at Western, not just in this maybe applicant or offer holder phase that you're in right now. You can find important information about your tuition, grades, offer, and so much more. The last one that we want to highlight is the Choose Western offer portal. This is designed to help you with that transition from high school to university. It's a great resource. You should definitely be checking it often. It highlights next steps, important deadlines, scholarship info, residence info, among other things. And you should, like I said, be checking this regularly, especially like after you're ready to accept that offer and you want to know more about your admission conditions and finances and stuff like that. If you are coming from outside of Canada and you're an international fee paying student, this is also where you can find information about applying for a study permit and requesting your PAL as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So today we're going to go over a few things that you want to think about as we get closer to September. So to make things easier to follow, we're going to try and go through this in a chronological order, or at least we're going to try to. So the first thing you'll see on your screen there, that first sticky note, is accepting your offer. So to accept your offer, you go to the Ontario University Application Centre, which is OUAC that Nick just talked about. So you might be wondering, when do you need to accept your offer by? It's important to check your offer letter, which can be found on your Choose portal, which will provide you with a clear deadline for accepting your offer, because your deadline might be slightly different than a deadline one of your friends has, for example. So make sure that you're checking your specific offer letter for your acceptance deadline.
And then in addition to accepting your offer, make sure you have everything completed on your Student Center to-do list. These are generated based on your OUAC application, and it's common for many students who are applying from Ontario to not have any items since your schools already upload your grades on your behalf. So if you don't have a to-do list, that's totally okay. But if you do, we must receive all the items on your to-do list, and those items don't disappear. The status just changes from, missing, pending to received. That just means we've got it. Nothing else you have to do. If we ever need something else, we'll reach out to you and you'll know what else we're looking for.
Yeah, and if you're an international fee-paying student, you also have to keep in mind that you have a $2,500 deposit due after you accept your offer, and you want to do this deposit as soon as you're able to, right after you accept. So you need to accept your offer and pay that deposit in order to receive your provincial attestation letter, which is known as the PAL, which is required to get your study permit. So you can request your PAL on the Choose Western offer portal that we shared earlier. Now, it's also important to note that you don't need to wait until your final admissions conditions have been met to start the study permit process. If you do have any more questions around that study permit process, we're also hosting a session to learn more about the PALs and study permits on April 10th. So be sure to sign up for that presentation if you do have any specific questions on PALs or study permit.
Okay, so we have talked about probably the thing that's on a lot of your minds, getting and accepting those offers, but a lot of you are probably thinking about where you're going to live when you're here at Western. If there's one thing we want to make clear here today is that you have a lot of options when it comes to where you're going to live, whether you live on campus or off campus, but we're going to mainly speak about campus residences, which is where the majority of our first year students choose to live.
Yeah, so residence is a great choice for first year students for many reasons. First and foremost, it's right on campus, so you don't have to go far to get to your classes. You also have a really supportive community within residence that you can lean on during this transitional phase of your life. And then third, living in residence, you're also able to access some really special academic programming and events that are offered just through residents themselves. So let's talk a bit about when and how you receive an offer to residence. So if you're an incoming first year student who's coming directly from high school and you're unmarried, you're guaranteed residence at Western, and you'll receive an offer to live in residence when you receive your offer of admissions. Keep in mind that in order to meet this guarantee, there are some eligibility requirements and deadlines that you'll need to meet, and you can find all of these on your offer letter.
So building off what Jill said, even if you have that offer for residents, you still need to secure that spot. So we're going to talk a little bit about what those steps are. First thing you should do, take a look at the different residence styles and buildings that we have here at Western, maybe try and figure out where you would like to live. We are going to go over those different styles in just a minute. The next thing you need to do is log into myhousing.uwo.ca and submit your lifestyle questionnaire as well as your $900 deposit. And the deadline to do this is June 4th.
Yeah, so this lifestyle questionnaire that Nick mentioned really helps us match you with a roommate or a suite. But if you do already have a roommate in mind, you can let us know in that questionnaire as well, and we'll make sure you're put together. This questionnaire asks a variety of questions just to help us get to know your living style so that we can match you with someone that's a similar living style. Now remember, everything on the screen here, feel free to take a photo. This is all due by June 4th to make sure you secure your spot. So now that we've talked about securing your spot, let's take a closer look at the actual styles of residence buildings we offer here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jill. So at Western, we have 12 buildings for first year students, which come in the form of three unique styles: traditional, hybrid, and suite style. So the first one we're going to talk about is that traditional style. So in this style of building, there are single rooms as well as double rooms. The majority of the rooms there are double rooms, and there are shared washrooms on each floor.
Yeah, so the traditional residence style is really a great fit for anyone looking for, a traditional residence experience. There's a lot of community shared spaces in these buildings, but it also happens to be our most budget-friendly residence option. The traditional buildings that we have here at Western are Saugeen Maitland Hall, Medway Sydenham Hall, and Delaware Hall. And fun note, I actually lived in Saugeen Maitland Hall for 2 years and I loved my time there.
Okay, so next up, we are going to talk about suite style. You can think of this style as apartment living on campus. You have your own room with 2 to 3 roommates who have their own room, and then there's a kitchen, a living room, and washrooms all within the unit.
Yeah, suite style residences are really great for those students who value privacy and maybe want a bit more independence because of that kitchen. Our suite style residence buildings at Western are Elgin, Essex, Alumni, London, and Lambton Hall.
Okay, and the last style of residence that we have at Western is called hybrid style. And it's called hybrid because it really is a mix of the two that we talked about. These buildings have double rooms that share a semi-private bathroom. There's no kitchen and living room like suite style, but the bathroom is shared between 4 people and not the whole floor like our traditional style. And our hybrid buildings include Perth Hall, Bayfield Hall, and Ontario Hall. We also have Clare Hall, which is another one of our hybrid buildings, and this is for students who identify as women.
Yeah, so now that we've covered on-campus living, I think it's also important to highlight our off-campus housing options. So at Western, we have a full-time off-campus housing team who are there to help students find off-campus housing. This is really helpful for those of you who may not meet residence requirements or who prefer to live off-campus. If you do want to learn more about off-campus housing, you can visit offcampus.uwo.ca for more information on that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jill. So let's switch to the thing that we get asked about quite a bit when we're out talking to students, and that is what the food is like. So most of our residence buildings do have their own dining halls that are only steps away. They're mostly located on the main floor of those residence buildings. And even the ones that don't, you are less than a minute or two walk away from one that does. And at Western, you get a meal plan when you're in residence, and you have lots of options. You can eat in any of the residence dining halls, like I mentioned, or eat at any of the on campus eateries like Subway, Tim Hortons, Starbucks. We even have a number of off campus partner restaurants that you can use your meal plan at, like Jack Astor's, Bearcat, Swiss Chalet, and Domino's. So, on those nights where you're feeling like treating yourself a little bit, don't have to spend any extra money.
And having lived in residence myself, I can also speak to the residence dining hall food options. All of our dining halls always include a fresh salad bar, sandwiches, they've got made to order food like a stir fry bar, and they have hot meal options. Now, if you're worried about getting bored with the food, don't worry about that at all because all of our residence dining halls actually are on a 6 week rotation. So it doesn't ever feel like you're eating the same food because things are changing all the time. Furthermore, if you're vegan, vegetarian, maybe halal, there's always something for everyone in the dining halls. And if you do have any of these specific dietary needs, we have a nutrition manager on staff that would be happy to meet with you and help guide you through living in residence and using the dining halls.
So after listening to Jill and I briefly talk about residents, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the Q&A box, or you can join Jill for one of her residence webinars coming up. The next one's actually happening on Monday. So
Yeah.
we are going to move on from residents to another important topic.
Perfect. Yeah, so let's move on here. So the next thing that you might be thinking about as you're preparing to start at Western is your finances. So let's take a moment now to look at some of the costs for first year. On the screen now, you can see a breakdown of the costs for a typical first year student at Western. First, you see tuition, and tuition varies depending on a number of factors. For example, if you're from Ontario, if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, or if you're an international fee-paying student. The exact tuition amount also depends on your program, so that's why you're going to see a range listed here. So once you start looking at your specific case, you can find your tuition specifically. And then in addition to tuition costs, you also have to consider the costs for living away from home. So we show you these two estimates on the screen here because it's important that when you're thinking about your financing, that you're budgeting for both of those.
Yeah, for sure. For someone like me who really likes to have that budget all planned out and know where all of the money is going and how much everything is going to cost, we've luckily made this super easy for you to figure out what those costs in your first year are going to be like. We have our finance calculator on that Choose portal at choose.uwo.ca. You can put in all of your sources of funding, all of your expenses. And the nice thing about this is it's not just taking into account things like tuition and your books. It's your living costs, any other expenses you might have, and it'll give you that estimated total of what your costs over the year are going to be. We do really understand that university is a big investment. For most of you, it's probably the biggest investment you've ever made up to this point, and we're very much here to help and support you through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ways that we also help our students with this finance is through our automatic academic scholarships. So if your final admissions average is 90% or higher, you'll be guaranteed a scholarship, no application required. The scholarships for these automatic admissions include money towards tuition and money towards an optional abroad experience. You can actually see if you're currently eligible for one of the automatic admission scholarships on your Choose Western offer portal. Because our admission scholarships are based on your final grade averages, though, you'll find out if you officially qualify for the admission scholarship in early September. And then at that time, you'll get an email from us, and that money will come off of your second installment of tuition.
Yeah, and there's some additional automatic admission scholarships as well that are available to our students. So we have our arts and humanities automatic admission scholarship, so students could receive an additional 2,500 in their first year. Black and Indigenous students could receive up to $26,000 over 4 years. And then we also have our two automatic scholarships for our international fee paying students, both the Welcome to Canada Admission Scholarship and the Continue in Canada Admission Scholarship. Really just depends on if you are already in Canada or coming to London from another country. So all of our scholarship info can be found at welcome.uwo.ca/finances, but that is not the only way, the only thing that Western has available to help you with your finances as well.
Yeah, that's right. As you can see on the screen now, there's lots of other options to help you with your finances. For example, if you wanted to work while you're a student, we have over 2,000 work study positions on campus. There's also countless employment opportunities at Western that are non-work study. For example, you could work with our University Student Council. You could work at the Recreation Center as a lifeguard. There's lots of different options for working on or off campus. Speaking of working off campus, our Western Careers and Experience team is also dedicated to helping our students find that off campus employment. So, whether that be helping you workshop your resume, maybe organizing a mock interview, they even host job fairs where recruiters will come to campus and recruit students in university for postgraduate employment. So, whether it be working on campus or off, there are a lot of supports there at Western for you. Western students can also apply for bursaries and for government loans.
Yeah, at Western, we have around $27 million in bursary funding available. To receive part of this, you'll need to apply for admission bursary. There's an application that you fill out. You tell us all about yourself and your financial situation. Then you can meet with a member of our financial aid team and see if some of this funding can be made available to you. You can apply for this even before you have an offer or even if you haven't accepted your offer yet. And the deadline for this is usually around the beginning of July.
Yeah, and additionally, if you're a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident student who's coming from outside of Ontario and you qualify for a government loan, you're also guaranteed a $3,000 admissions bursary from Western. All you have to do for this one is apply. And the last piece of finance information here that I wanted to share with you all today is that if you're the first generation student in your family who's attending post-secondary education, be sure to click the first generation box on your application because if you're starting first year straight from high school and you're receiving government loans and you're a first generation student, at Western we commit to offering at least $2,000 for you in your first year.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. So we all agree finances are pretty important, something you're probably very um, aware of and something you're definitely thinking about. But there's also another thing that's really important, especially if you're looking to be a Western student in the fall, and that's meeting your admission conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find your admissions conditions at choose.uwo.ca. I know we've said this website a lot, and that's because that's where a lot of your information is. So you can find your admissions conditions on this portal after you receive your offer. You'll see one of the tiles in your Choose portal will be called Admissions Conditions. So you click on that tile, take a look, make sure you're clicking on More to actually read all of the details. And then if there's anything that you don't understand, be sure to ask us. You can send us an email at any time, or you can book a one-on-one advising appointment with myself, Nick, or a number of our colleagues.
Okay, so now that we've talked about meeting your admission conditions, we are going to talk about kind of the next step in this kind of timeline, this journey that we're on, and that is registering and picking your courses. This is definitely something to get excited about because we have hundreds of courses for you to choose from as a first year student here at Western. Before we dive in, though, we're going to do another quick poll.
Yeah, so this poll that we're launching now, it's all about courses. So at Western, we have all of those core courses you need for whichever program you're entering, but we also have some really fun elective options. So let us know which one of these courses that you see on this list would maybe be the most interesting for you. We've got the Disney Dream Factory, history, food ethics, Planet Google, the climate emergency. We even have an elective class called Beer, which is all about the business, social, cultural history of this global beverage. So you can see there's lots of different elective options, which are really neat when you're taking those fun classes outside of your program. So let's see, we've got all of our results coming in.
I will say this is the first time we've ever done this where Disney Dream Factory wasn't the clear winner.
Yeah,
So,
very interesting.
all right.
Awesome. Yeah, it
So,
looks like our history of ethics and food is winner here.
okay, first time
Awesome.
for everything.
Yeah.
So that was just a very small snapshot of some of the first year courses that will be available to you as a Western student. You probably already have an idea of the program that you want to study when you come to Western, and that's fantastic. But we also want you to know that you're not going to be limited to just the courses in your program. We have a flexible degree structure here, which means that most students get to take several electives, and those can be courses that aren't related to your program at all. They're just simply something that you're interested in.
Yeah, 100%. So my favorite course when I was a student that I took was actually musical theater. Did that directly pertain to my degree? No, but it was one of my electives and it ended up being my favorite course. I absolutely loved it. So now when it comes to choosing your courses for first year specifically, you want to make sure that you're aware of the required courses that you need to take in first year in order to continue into your desired program in second year. So first year students register for their courses later in the summer, but we definitely recommend that you prepare before your course selection date. So let's dive a little bit in how to do that.
So, first and foremost, we would definitely recommend that you do some research on the modules that you're interested in. If you don't know what a module is, that's really just a group of courses in one particular subject. So, we have our specializations, our majors, and our minors. When you study at Western, you might complete one module or two or even three. So, when I did my undergraduate degree, I did an honors specialization in history. I ended up taking 12 courses in history plus the remaining other requirements for my degree. I would have taken more if they let me, but the module that I completed, so that honors specialization, appeared on my degree when I graduated. When you're in first year, you will want to keep some options open because the truth is that most students change their mind at least once or twice during their degree. They go back and forth, they find something else that they're interested in, and then they end up pursuing something that is completely different than what they thought they're going to be taking when they came out of high school. And that's totally okay. It's almost expected at this point that that is what's going to happen in your first year.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's really a good strategy to have two or three different modules that interest you. And by modules, I mean subject areas, right? You want to have some two or three different subject areas that interest you. And then make a list of all of the first year courses that are required for each of those options so that when you're registering for your first year classes, after you're done first year, you don't just have one option to progress into. You maybe have three different doors that you could walk through. For example, when I was in first year, I really didn't know exactly what direction I wanted my degree to take. So I was advised by an academic counselor to take the required courses for three different programs. Those three programs for me were psychology, sociology, and English. So I made sure to do my research on the academic calendar. I found the required courses for each three of those programs. So by the time I was done my first year, I had three options that I could pursue as my degree. And as we know, I ended up picking sociology, but it was nice to have those options. So you can find a full list of the modules and the courses on Western's academic calendar. The website for that is westerncalendar.uwo.ca. You'll be able to search in the subject area, you'll find the different module options, click on them, and then find the required courses for each of those module options. Now, once you've completed that step one there, you've done your research, you've found your required courses, you can then move on to step two, which is finding different electives that you can take in first year, like me and Nick were talking about earlier. Remember, those electives are those fun classes that you get to take that are outside of your specific module that you just take because you're interested in. It's a good idea to have a couple electives picked out when it comes to making your timetable because some will fit better than others when you're organizing your class times and some will fill faster than others. So make sure you have a few options there.
Definitely. So now that we've picked out the courses, step three is enrolling in them. So you are going to, the way I would recommend doing it is enrolling in those required courses first. So, for example, Jill mentioned that she had a bunch of different subjects that she wanted to do. She would have enrolled in those courses first and then picked her electives. That's what I would do too. If I was you, don't pick those electives first, even if they sound the most interesting of any of the courses that you could take. Pick those required courses first and then add in electives. And if you want to have a full course load, you're going to enroll in 5.0 credits. Those can be 5 full year courses, 10 half year courses, or a combination of both. When it is time to start enrolling in your courses, and don't worry, we'll send you multiple reminders of when your date is coming up. This is going to happen sometime in June. Typically near the end of June is when those incoming first year students pick their courses.
Yeah, so now that we've gone through course selection and enrolling, we're going to take a look at what your timetable might actually look like in first year.
So on your screen now is an example of a social science student's timetable. It probably looks very different from what you do in high school. Most of you are probably used to starting between 8 and 9, finishing between 2 and 3, take the same 4 classes every day for a semester, then you switch in second semester. Some days in first year, you may have some early morning classes. Some others, you may not start till the afternoon. You may have 3 or 4 classes in one day, other days where you only have one. It really is up to you. That is the nice thing about this is you get to pick your schedule based on the course availability and the times, unless you're in a program like nursing, music, or engineering.
Yeah, so some programs, like Nick mentioned, nursing, music, engineering, on the other hand, are much more structured. So the timetables in these programs are going to look more similar to one another. So on the screen now is an example of an engineering student's timetable. As you can see, it looks pretty different. So all engineering students take the same courses in first year, for example, although they might be split up into different sections or different rooms at different times, but they will all be given the same courses. And like we said, that is just for engineering, music, and nursing. All of our other programs, you have a lot more flexibility in building your timetable.
So, just on a side note here, we do understand that while the thought of picking your courses is exciting, it can also be a little bit stressful and overwhelming. We do really encourage you to use that Choose portal that we've mentioned what seems like a million times in this webinar, choose.uwo.ca, because that is really the best place to start when you're learning about how this course registration process works.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. And in addition to using your Choose portal to help you navigate course registration, Western also runs a summer program called Western Launch, which helps you get ready for the fall, getting ready to start your university degree. So with Western Launch, you get one-on-one course advising appointments, which are held virtually over Zoom. These appointments will run June to August, and signups will open around June. Additionally, as part of Western Launch, you'll also have the opportunity to actually meet some of the Western community over some summer at optional faculty orientation days, or you could even sign up to stay overnight a few nights in residence to kind of prepare yourself before the official move in. Really, there's a variety of options you can do to get involved, and you can find them all. The website's on the screen now. It's launch.uwo.ca. We can't recommend this program more. It's an amazing, amazing program. So definitely sign up for Western Launch.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is probably the best chance that you'll have to really start getting a feeling for what it's like to be that Western student. So definitely take advantage of all this stuff. Can't, like Jill said, we cannot recommend this enough. So courses are complete. We are nearing the end of our journey. Once we get to this point, you have accepted that offer, you figured out your finances and housing, you've met those admission conditions, you've registered for your courses. Next step is actually getting to London and moving in. It's going to be summer at this point in time. For those of you who are living in a place where the winters are kind of cold and miserable, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be warm, it's going to be so much nicer than it is now. And lots of you shared that you're not from London at the start of this presentation. So we're going to take a little bit of time now to show you around.
Yeah, so London's population is over 420,000 and it's growing every day. It's really a great city for university students because our students actually make up 10% of the population, which is crazy when you think about it. Our local businesses, our restaurants, and grocery stores all around the university actually cater to our students by offering discounts that make it more affordable for you to get out and enjoy London. For example, a few of those grocery stores, if you grocery shop on Tuesdays, you get a student discount just by showing your student card. Furthermore, if you like nature, and who doesn't like some green spaces, London's actually named the Forest City because we have over 200 parks and a lot of different trails that even go through campus directly.
And not only do they go through campus, but our downtown core also has a ton of green space, which I think is pretty unique. And there is always something to do in London, especially in that downtown area, whether it's sporting events, concerts, going to see a play, tons of restaurants, shops. London is actually an international hub for music and culture. It is the first city in Canada to be named a UNESCO City of Music. And as a Western student, you'll have no problem getting to all of these places because you get a bus pass included in your tuition. And London has a very easy to use transit system that you will have no problems figuring out.
Yeah, so then when it's time to actually make your way to London, you have several options. So, first, if you're driving, London is just under 2 hours west of Toronto, 2 hours east of the Windsor-Detroit border, so it's right there in the middle of those two major cities. You can also hop on a bus or a train to get here. The Via Rail comes directly through London, as well as some other different bus companies. Now, if you're coming to us from farther away, you might consider flying. So you have some options. You can fly directly into London International Airport, or you can fly to Toronto and then take a Robert Q bus, van, or a train to London.
So getting to London is really just that first step. A lot of you are probably wondering, okay, when am I moving in? I've already got my travel plans figured out. I know when I'm going to get to London, but when do I actually get to move into residence at Western? Typically, residences have move-in dates around the Labor Day long weekend in September. Anyone coming from outside of Ontario, you are also able to move in ahead of this weekend. You can just make arrangements with our housing team, and they're more than willing to accommodate earlier move-in dates if needed. The date that you are going to be moving in will really depend on the building that you're moving into, but you're going to get those details in the summer. Nothing to stress about right now.
Yeah, so we can all agree, I think, that moving into residence is a really, really exciting time because it's also the beginning of orientation week. Orientation week, or as we like to call it at Western, O Week, always has something for everyone. There's activities to help you make friends, find your way around campus, and make memories. So O Week is that first week right in between when you move in and before classes start. So it's a time where you can meet all of those friends, join some activities, and really become accustomed to the Western campus. There's nothing that you have to do to prepare for O Week, but we always like to include it in this Next Steps presentation because O Week really marks the official start of your first year. And personally, O Week is one of my favorite Western memories.
Yeah, a week is when you really become a Mustang.
Yeah.
As soon as you start taking part, you see how welcoming and amazing this campus and community is. This is when you really start to feel like Western is home.
Yeah.
And also, too, if you are a student coming from outside of Canada, we have an international orientation as well before O Week. So you can kind of get settled in, learn a little bit more about Canadian culture and Western without having the campus full and full of students. So that's what we wanted to share with you today. These are just some of the things that you might be starting to think about as you start your Western journey.
Yeah, so if you wanted a checklist, you might want to take a screenshot of this slide here. But again, all of this information is also on choose.uwo.ca.
So to recap, before starting at Western, you'll want to accept your offer and meet your mission conditions, figure out your housing, whether that is at Western or off campus, figure out your finances, which may include applying for bursaries, some government assistance, maybe some other scholarships, register for those courses, and then get to London and move in.
Yeah. And for anyone who's made it to this point of the presentation, you're feeling a little bit excited, maybe a little anxious, a little nervous at this point. Just remember that all of those feelings are completely natural, and we promise that you are not the only one feeling them. But we just want to make it clear that when you do get here, when you get to Western, you will thrive. You're going to connect with new people. You'll remain connected long after you leave campus. And when you do come to Western, you're going to be welcomed by a really supportive community. And all of us can't wait to meet you. These mentors, leaders, and friends, we're all here to support you throughout your entire journey.
And Jill and I are here for you too. Like Jill mentioned earlier in the presentation, if at any point between now and when you start as a Western student, you can book an advising appointment with us. You can reach out in other ways, and us and all of our friends who are here from Western with us today are also here to help. They've been answering all those questions in the Q&A box there, and we are going to answer a few of them live right at the end of this webinar.
Yeah, so in the meantime, on the screen here, you might want to take another screenshot. These are important websites and upcoming events that can help you out on this journey as well. So you'll see that QR code. You can get the full list of our upcoming virtual presentations. We've got living in residence coming up, offer holder welcomes, some study permit info sessions. We also have our spring open house on March 22nd, which is when our campus is open for prospective students to come and explore the entire campus. So in the meantime, like I said, take a screenshot. And now, if you feel like you've got all of the information you need, thank you for joining us today. Good luck on your journey. But if you do have a few more lingering questions, Nick and I are going to answer some of those questions live for you now.
Yeah, so the first question that we get quite often is, how do I choose which residence that I get to live in?
Yeah, so when it comes to choosing your residence, so as we went over all of those styles, you'll take a look at all of the styles of buildings. Then when you fill out your residence questionnaire form, you'll rank your buildings from your top to your bottom from 1 to 12. And then on the day that those forms are due, all of the names go into a lottery system. And based on when your name is picked in that lottery is what building you'll be slotted into.
Perfect.
So it looks like the other question that we got a bunch here today was, can I visit the campus this summer?
You absolutely can. We have campus tours that run throughout the summer months. That schedule hasn't quite been finalized yet, but you definitely will be able to visit Western and take a campus tour over the summer. Absolutely. Another thing that we'll talk a little bit about now, we get this question quite a bit, but Jill's also going to cover it in her residence webinars. What's one thing that people forget to bring when they move in? If you're already starting those packing lists, fantastic. You are much more prepared than I ever was, but definitely something that we get asked about quite a bit.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I would say the two things that most people forget to bring when they're moving into residence is one, a power bar, because in this day and age, you're going to have so many different things to plug in. You're going to want a few more outlets. So a power bar is a great thing to bring. And then the second most common thing people forget to bring is actually shower sandals. So because you're probably sharing shower with new people in different residence buildings, shower shoes are just a great way to go to help yourself kind of get used to that. So definitely power bar and shower sandals.
All right. Hopefully all of you are making a note of that.
Yeah. Looks like we've got one more question here that we came in live. This will be the last one we answer. So this student's asking, I want to take psychology, but my offer is for the Faculty of Social Science. Can I still study psychology?
Absolutely. So not just with social science, but with all of our programs, your offers are just going to be for the faculty. You don't have to decide right now what program you are going to take right away. You get some time, like we mentioned, with picking those courses, taking a bunch of different subjects before you actually have to commit to anything. So if you want to do psychology now and you get through that first year and you still want to, fantastic. But we do it this way so nobody is tied to one program in particular, because we know how many of our first year students end up changing their mind. So anytime you see your offer and it says like it's a common first year, or it doesn't have the specific program that you're thinking that you want to study, that's totally okay. You have lots of options once you get here.
Yeah. So those are all of our live questions that we got during the webinar today. Thank you to all of you who stayed right till the end. We appreciate you being here. We hope that we've been able to answer some of those questions for you and help you prepare for your next steps getting closer to the fall. Nick and I are going to turn our cameras off, but if you do have any lingering questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we will answer those before we fully end the webinar. Like we mentioned earlier too, there will be a recording posted on our website. So if there's something that you missed near the beginning, you want to go back and see, feel free to go to the website to find the virtual recording.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Best of luck and hope to see you all in the fall.